In the scenario, most of the nation's smartphones have now stopped working.
You've got a lot of people out there, millions with smartphones. Their decisions about what to do are going to have a huge impact on how quickly this spreads.
We don't have the authority in this nation to, as a government, to quarantine people's cell phones.
I'm actually shocked to hear that we don't have this authority. If this was someone with smallpox wandering through the Super Bowl, we would have the authority to quarantine them. And if we don't have the authority, the Attorney General ought to find it. Your phone is not going to work until it's been patched. We just need to find the authority to order them to take that action. And if they won't take it from us, then we have to go to the FCC and tell them they're no longer an independent agency. They need to take national security advice from this body.
Let me just make it clear. I'm not saying that there isn't an authority you could come up with, particularly if we make this determination here that this is an act of war. In times of extreme stress, presidents have acted without regard to the law and gone to Congress immediately and said, this is what I've done.
The nation's internet system has slowed to a crawl, virtually shutting down the nation's financial and transportation systems.
Some of what you want us to do involves getting people and institutions to use the tools they already have, patches, antiviral software, and actually simply download them and implement them. And a lot of people don't do it. How do you make them do it? You have the ISPs and the telecoms make people or download it on their own volition, even if people don't do it themselves.
None of us can log on to our government computer networks without going through a set of security checks that are performed on the systems, on the computers that we're trying to log in. Increasingly, as the internet becomes subject to these sorts of attacks, people are going to have to demonstrate that what they are trying to hook up to the public network has been secured in some fashion. And the internet service providers are going to end up trying to make sure that people who are hooking up to the network are not posing a threat to that network.
If we go down that road, what happens the next time the president meets with the premier of China, or if we ever meet with the leadership of Iran and they say, wow, great, you're sitting on top of your internet the same way we're sitting on top of our internet, so we all agree the government ought to control what comes across the internet. Isn't that argument going to be thrown in our face?
Governments are going to do what those governments want to do, and whether we've created a talking point or not for them in the discussions, I think, is not relevant to what they will actually end up doing. We have got to defend ourselves. Nothing looks worse to the international community than that map. We look weak and unable to help anyone in the world who shares our values. We've got to solve that problem first.
We shouldn't be debating whether the president has the authority to basically say, metaphorically, cars with faulty brakes that are a danger in the highways have to be recalled and fixed. I mean, we should just go through and have that kind of authority.
This is a regulated industry. Everybody who provides telecommunications services is subject to regulation in the public interest. And we can take those authorities and tell them what they need to do to get this worm out of our system. We can find authority. It's not well designed for this, but in a crisis, we've got enough leeway to do it.
I don't think we should be telling people to turn their phone off, because guess what? People won't. And then the story will be the President of the United States can't even get his constituents to turn their phones off. You got to go it from the other end, which is if phones have to go off, you've got to turn them off for them.
As the discussion has developed, what I'm starting to hear, and I think, Joe, you summed it up, is we can't ask, we're going to have to tell. Because the bigger danger is not that we're going to offend people, but that we're going to seem ineffective. And that ineffectiveness will cause a crisis of confidence.
I think the President has to, despite all of his instincts, to reassure people. So he's got to define this as a major crisis.
I have no quarrel with acting decisively and doing things for people, making their decisions for them in this regard.